Welcome back to another edition of Badlands presents draft season, edition 11. Because this is the 11th year we've been doing this thing. Except we've added some sauce, some sizzle to my co-host chair. I kept Meegs because I liked Meegs out of everybody else I had, and then I kidnapped Dan from Buck the Trend, and now we're ready to give you guys some draft takes for this upcoming NFL draft, which is probably more important than we all would have thought it would have been, given that we had Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, we had Garrett Wilson at receiver, Brees Hall at running back, a so-so line. But here we are, the New York Jets stand entering Week 15 at 5-8, a showdown with the banged up Miami Dolphins coming up on Sunday. But before we dive in, let me. You guys got a teaser of this a couple weeks ago, and now I get to formally introduce my co-hosts for a draft season this year. Dan E. Dangerously, Dan Essen, the king of the Jollof rice, the round mound of the underground. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. It's been a interesting winter so far. We're getting into
Yeah.
late NFL season, and who knows? Maybe if things turn a certain way, we can delay draft talk even further. But we're not. I think we're being more realistic here. We're going to get going. We're going to get going.
Oh, I didn't get the memo about being realistic. I was about to say, guys, we beat Miami on Sunday. All bets are off. All bets are off. But my resident truth teller, you know how Obama had an anger translator. Meegs is my resident truth teller. Mike Meeg Millie, my guy, Strong Island's finest. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Nice to see the Jets actually score some points this weekend. We'll see if it carries over to Miami, a place they have not played well recently. A lot of people are talking about um, can the Jets waste another year of Zach's prime, which drove me up the wall this week. But when he comes back down to earth, I'm assuming we'll be podcasting again. I wish we didn't care this much about the draft before Christmas, but an annual Jets tradition. We're getting farther away from Halloween, so I guess that's progress.
That's it. That's it. Well, and the Jets. To the point you made about the Jets and the House of Horrors, that is Dan Marino way. The Jets have treated South Beach the way I treated South Beach in my 20s. It was just not pleasant times at all. And so maybe this Sunday is their chance to buck the trend. Maybe that's where it goes. But we're gonna give you guys 20 plus minutes of draft talk, and then in 2 weeks, Connor, LeBron, James, Rogers will be joining us to give us his fiery takes on all things Jets and draft. But we're going to begin with the quarterback position because everything around this team begins with the quarterback position. And as Meegs alluded, there was a lot of chatter. Now, I've taken my annual social media break, so I have not seen it. However, the Badlands crew has been very kind to share all your crazy ass tweets and Discord messages. So I've been able to keep up with that. And one of the more interesting points that has been raised after Zach Wilson led the Jets to 30 points, threw for 300 yards, right? Zach attack, Zach Morris Wilson is back, is that the Jets should pick up his $25 million a year option to back up Aaron Rodgers next year. Now, I think that is the craziest idea that I've heard. I think that it is nuts. I think that it would be absolutely career suicide for Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh to pick up Zach Wilson's $25 million a year option and bring him back as the sole backup to the ayahuasca man, Aaron Rodgers. So, given that I know we all agree on that, let's look to the draft because I think we all agree that the Jets should get a young quarterback in here. One of the things that's often not talked about with a lot of these franchises, look at the Cincinnati Bengals. Smooth Joe Burrow, right? Who's in his quarterback room? Jake Browning, who's now winning games over here, right? Zach Taylor's got him looking like a competent quarterback. And granted, he was all right in college. He was all right. Browning wasn't bad. So the Jets have probably the worst quarterback room, once you remove Aaron Rodgers. Meeks, I'm going to start with you. Who's a quarterback in this class? Not the Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jalen Daniels, J.J. McCarthy. Not in that conversation, although I tend to believe J.J. McCarthy should go in round 2, not in round 1, but I'm seeing a lot of mocks with him in round 1. Who's a guy that you would try to target in the draft to back up Aaron Rodgers and develop here long-term behind him?
So my ideal quarterback room next year is obviously it's Rodgers. It's like a veteran backup, and this developmental guys who want to be the quarterback 3 just have some nice preseason tape, be in the quarterback room with two veterans. And the guy that I'm like leaning towards, he didn't have the best year this year because he had a knee injury, but he was really good in 2022. And the flashes were still there, is Michael Pratt of Tulane, who's a very accurate quarterback, a guy who's played a lot of football, which is kind of been the Jets' Achilles heel with the last couple quarterbacks they've drafted. Like Darnold didn't play much at USC. Zach played more, but he played Little Sisters of the Poor 80% of the time. And he also played like the COVID schedule, which I think also hurt his development as he was getting like, more into it as a college football player. Gino didn't play that much at West Virginia. I do think they've kind of really like lacked taking that experienced quarterback, which I think we're seeing like the quarterbacks who play more are actually having a little bit more success. Like I do think we like CJ Stroud played like 2 full years, no injuries. Look how much football Dak Prescott played when he went to Mississippi State. And like that was a developmental guy that the Cowboys really hit on. I do just think you see like when you see a success story outside the first round, it's normally because that quarterback played a lot of football. And Michael Pratt played a bunch at Tulane. He has enough arm talent. I think he's super accurate. He can move. I do think that's just a quarterback that like can work and can be in the NFL. And he's the guy I'm really starting to lean towards in like that top of round 4 like kind of area.
And I think I love that you mentioned Dak, who is probably the front runner for MVP right now, right? I think he's the guy. Him, Brock Purdy, Lamar's. I got Lamar.
Another guy played a lot of football. Brock Purdy was like a 4-year starter.
Right. And so you're looking at guys that have reps under their belt, right? And reps in much more closer to NFL systems now than guys maybe even 10 years ago, right? Who were coming in with like these spread offenses that weren't really in vogue 10, 15 years ago. Now you got guys who are coming in and again, they know how to set protections. They know how to get out of the pocket and move, and they're accurate, right? So again, they may not have the biggest arm, but at the very least they can get it into their playmakers' hands. Dan, who's a quarterback for you that you're like, listen, if we have Rodgers, a veteran, say Tannehill, Jameis, we all like crab legs, So you're gonna get Jameis in here. Who's a young quarterback that you would like in this quarterback room with Rodgers and a veteran?
Yeah. So if I'm looking at late round quarterback, I'm honestly, especially if we have somebody like Tannehill already in the fold, I'm going straight vibes, truly. So I'm probably gonna go somebody like Sam Hartman from Notre Dame. Now, he makes a lot of mistakes. It's true.
He's certainly old, too.
He's extremely
the Joe Douglas special. The Joe Douglas special.
Old. But truly all vibes. He has a necklace of his own bones.
You have the most handsome quarterback room in the league, so there's that.
That's the thing. If we're going for straight vibes, you're going for I want my quarterback room to look like a cologne commercial. You're bringing in somebody like Sam Hartman. You're maximizing the vibes. It's good, all good vibes too. You don't have to worry about like a selfish situation. He's a pretty selfless guy from all reports, and every team that he's gone to has really good feedback in terms of like just his character and stuff like that. If you've watched some old quarterback documentaries, again, as an older player, he's had a lot of stuff out there. He's on like a high school quarterback documentary a while back.
With Justin Fields. That's how old Sam Hartman is.
Justin Fields, exactly.
They were on the same season of QB1 on Netflix. I'm not making that up.
Super high character dude. So
if you want to compare, Justin is what? Justin is 21? 22?
No, Justin Fields is like 25. He's in year 4 in the NFL. He's the same age as Zach.
Is he 25?
I think he's like 24 or 25. Yeah, it's been a while, man. We've been doing this podcast too long. I know.
That's true. So Sam Hartman is your guy, Dan. That is the guy that you're like, if I want the Savage Dior of quarterback rooms, I am going to go get Sam Hartman from Notre Dame.
You're getting Sam Hartman. You're getting some very happy preseason Jets fans. In those third and fourth quarters, they are staying in that game. It's a big Woody Johnson move. Maximize sales.
Huge Woody Johnson move.
That is very much a Woody Johnson move. Of course, the general manager that would draft him, if Woody's doing one of his moves, is going to get fired after the season. So I mean, we'll see how that goes, right? Let's pivot right to the running back position. So Breece Hall just had his best game since Week 5 versus Denver, right? He looks much more like Saquon Barkley a year after the ACL than he does like Saquon Barkley in year 2, and one of the things that I think you've kind of seen is that this Jets running back room still needs some juice. Still needs some juice. Cook has looked better the last like few weeks, but better for him is like 3 yards instead of one, right? Like it's kind of what you get better for him. And they haven't shaken off the cobwebs on Izzy to let Izzy spin. Like how they did my man Booby Miles in Friday Night Lights. They don't let Izzy spin. So maybe Izzy will start to, they'll start to keep him on the field a little bit more, but he can't pass protect. So he can't pass protect. Brees can't pass protect. Right, so that leaves Dalvin Cook as the only one that's willing to block some guys. So Meegs, I'll start with you. Who? And I will tell you, you and I agreed on this. We were talked down by a former member of our quartet because when we argued that Devon Shane could do a lot of what these top guys do, we were told, no, that's crazy talk. What is happening? And then now look, Meegs and I are in a fantasy league. We're in the first round against each other, and I'm hoping that Shane's ACL goes somewhere else on Sunday, or he takes a rest, or goes to like a bar and doesn't make it to the game. But Meeks, who's a running back that you very much like as either to supplant or support Brees next year? Because this running room needs a little bit more juice, man.
So I don't think there's this running back class, unfortunately, is just like a tall glass of mid. Like it's really not. And the Jordan Brooks injury didn't help it like at all. So I don't think there's a running back in this class who's ever going to supplant Brees. But I do want to go back to another conversation that me and DA had over the summer that we agreed on was that the veteran running back that we would have liked them to add was Zeke Elliott. Because Zeke isn't what he used to be, but is a really good short yardage back, is a very good pass protector, and kind of knows how to get those tough yards when you need it, especially in the red zone. And I think this running back might get drafted a little higher than I'm comfortable with, but the guy whose skill set they probably could use a lot is Blake Corum of Michigan. Experienced runner, tough runner. I think he has like 22 touchdowns this year, just knows how to get in the end zone. And Brees is a home run machine. Like I do think Brees is a good short yardage back, but I do think what makes Brees special is just when he can get into his second and his third gear and turn those 4-yard gains into like 20-yard gains. And I do think complementing with just like a savvy running back who's a little more experienced would be the best thing to like work for him. And I think Blake Corum probably does it the best in this class. If he's there on day 3, he's definitely a guy you start to look towards. But if I wouldn't take him in like the top 75 picks, which he might get pushed above just based on how this class is kind of shaping out.
Well, and I'll tell you, I had Big Blake Griffin Corman written number 2 on my list. The number 1 running back I had on my list before we go to you, Dan, was Jonathan Brooks from Texas. That's the guy I had because I think I agree with you. Yes, you and I, we and Dan, I think you had said, even with Zeke over the summer was they need somebody who's going to get the tough yards in this offense. They don't have anybody because even Dalvin Cook is a guy that's like, take your time, boom, home run kind of guy, right? In his prime, that's kind of his deal, right? He doesn't really like to bang like that. That's not really his game. Zeke welcomes the contact. I think with the Jets, they have a specific style of back. And I think Brooks fits that style of just, like, again, 200 pounds, a little bit taller than what I would like my running backs. But I think the Jets have a preference for backs. I just wonder what changes are made on the offensive staff because, Dan, before I go to you about this, you floated a really interesting concept about if Bob Saleh wasn't scared to win, Frank Reich would be his offensive coordinator next year, right? And Frank Reich has a specific style of back that is very different than the backs that the Jets have now. So who's a running back that you're thinking that could supplant or support Brees next year as he enters year 2 post Achilles?
Yeah, so I mean, this again, like Meek said, this class is a little bit tough to cipher through. Honestly, at this point, and he's not necessarily a perfect scheme fit, I don't think. But and considering who knows what might happen with the offensive staff, like you said, who knows who's going to be a fit or not. But Ray Davis from Kentucky, again, I know I'm just going with a lot of vibes players at this point, but he's fun as hell, and he runs hard. Yeah. Hard. He's battle tested, been through it in the SEC. Dude's good, man. Like he's got great vision. He, had to deal with a lot. There wasn't a lot of like Kentucky's an interesting program because I feel like they overachieve for what is typically expected of them, but also at the same time they have some games where you're like, what happened? But yeah, like I think he was a big part of.
Florida's still trying to tackle him.
Exactly. Honestly, it was that game that I'm like, okay, damn,
Yeah.
Like I know Ford is playing terrible,
Yeah,
but like nah, he's punking everyone on the field. So it's
you
like
can
you
play.
love those type of running backs.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you like the guys who like, like, all right, if I get you the ball in space, there is a very good chance you're going to make a few people miss. And I think right now when you look at the Jets offense, the Jets really like Garrett is a he's going to try to make you miss. Like that, and I think that's why you've seen some of the issues that he's had with ball security is because he's always trying to make somebody miss, always trying to, right? I'd love for the offense to get a little bit more dangerous, man. Like I think you want somebody that, like, listen, if I get you the ball in the flat and you're singled up with a linebacker, I'm going to make you miss. I'm going to make you miss. Speaking of Garrett Wilson, so he is on pace for another 1,000-yard season, right? Despite having, again, the worst quarterback play in the league over the last 2 years, right? Zach, again, hats off to you for 300 yards, but you've been arguably the worst quarterback in the league. They paid $44 million to Alan Lazard to be a non-blocking, non-catching wide receiver. So basically just a sixth lineman, right? They missed Corey Davis very clearly. They didn't use Miko Hardman. Tyler Conklin's probably their second most productive pass catcher outside of Brees Hall, who had 8 catches last week. So, Dan, I'll start with you. First round pick, we keep thinking that it's going to be, and we'll get to this in the next topic, it's going to be offensive line. On the off chance that it's not, who is the best fit non-Marvin Harrison Jr. opposite Garrett Wilson in this offense that we don't know what it's going to look like? Who's the receiver that you're targeting to put opposite Garrett Wilson so Garrett Wilson doesn't have to do it all by himself?
So Meegs and Connor are slowly trying to supplant this player from the wide receiver 2 spot for me. Like I said, and on Twitter, I believe, and also many times in our Slacks group messages, the Nigerian boost is just too high. It's Rome Odunze. Just one of my favorite players in this draft. I loved him last year too. Thought there was a chance he might come out last year, and then he didn't. Then this year is just solidifying it. He's just outstanding every single game. It's just like you could basically just guarantee every time he's playing with Penix, he's like, yeah, he's gonna score. Like at some point in the game, he's gonna break free. Penix gonna find him because Penix just like their connections is perfect. And Penix hasn't been like it's 2 years of playing with them. It's like great. Last year it looked amazing. This year it's like no, like I can find him anywhere against anybody, and I'm like it's going to be automatic. Great, a great jump ball guy. He's great route runner. He's larger, than the receivers that the Jets typically employ. So I think that he'd be a great person opposite Garrett because he has a little bit more size, and I think he's gonna be a little bit of a different threat against defenses. I think Garrett's incredible everywhere. He can do all the jump ball stuff as well, but I think getting somebody who's a little bit more of a physical threat like Rome, and he just moves differently. I think there was like a Keenan Allen comparison that I think is beautiful just because of the way that he runs, the way that he moves, and the way that he attacks the game. Like you can see them just try to get the ball in his hands on like even jet sweeps, which this year was a nice little new wrinkle that I honestly was a little bit surprised at. I thought they would just kind of let him do his thing on the outside, but they're like, no, he can do more. Just get the ball in his hands, let him do his thing. So yeah,